Hi, my name is Georgia Ross, and today I will be analyzing Stanley Kubrick's The Shining from 1980, specifically his cinematography and sound and music choices that create the feelings of isolation, fear, and overall suspense in the audience's mind. These choices, in a way, trap the viewer or audience into the setting and experiences that Jack, Wendy, and Danny all experience throughout the show. Let's start off with cinematography. There are some specific choices that are consistent throughout this whole film. In fact, almost all of Kubrick's choices of cinematography, sound, and music just are consistent throughout the whole film. But I think they're the most pivotal at the beginning of the film. Because even though the beginning of the film might feel slow, it just creates such suspense and build up to the final climax where Jack loses his mind and begins to attack his family. These choices include POV camera shots from Danny and Jack's perspective. For example, when Danny is finding room I'm sorry, I can't remember which room it is. 232. I have it in my notes somewhere, but you know which room I'm talking about. Room 232, I feel like. Anyway, room 232. And we are following him as he approaches this room, but the camera shot then switches, and all of a sudden we are in the POV of Danny entering this room. And as slowly as he enters this room, it puts the viewer and audience into Danny's mind. We are seeing what he is seeing and feeling what he is feeling. And it's incredibly effective at putting fear into the viewer's heart and mind, I guess. There's also what I like to call follow shots, which I think are extremely important. I'm not sure if there's a technical term for this. These follow shots are typically when the camera is following. It's a POV shot. I think of them as a POV shot from the unknown entity of the hotel or something affecting them. We follow either Danny and Wendy or just Danny or just Jack throughout the hotel, or even their car as they're driving. The movie opens with the camera following Jack's car as he makes his way up to the hotel, and this follow shot just shows us how wide and isolated that this area is, while following Jack just going into this isolation willingly. And I feel like that creates the sense that the viewer and audience can't escape this isolation. Another example of this is when Danny and Wendy are in the maze for the first time together. They are walking through the maze and seemingly having fun, but the background music is low brass. And it just builds and builds and builds with intensity and sound as the camera follows them closer and closer and closer throughout this maze until the scene ends with Jack overlooking this maze, the maze replica in the hotel, and seeing Danny and Wendy in it like they're objects of some kind. And I think this is incredibly purposeful. These follow shots are throughout the whole film, and it's incredibly purposeful. Even the name of the hotel is the Overlook Hotel. We get the audience being put in this perspective of following the characters into these situations they can't escape. Is so eerie and isolating. There's also the choice to use close-ups. So I never really noticed this the first time I was watching this through. So I've seen this movie many times. I don't want to brag, but my wall has the majority of the films we've analyzed throughout this whole class. I have even more on the other wall. So I own almost every film we've watched, but I never noticed that in this particular horror movie, Kubrick makes the choice to use so many close-ups during the conversations and scenes, specifically on Danny and on Jack. So these close-ups usually start stationary, but then they slowly zoom in, which, like, again, it is physically bringing the audience face to face with whatever Jack or Danny is feeling, and it gives us this inescapable feeling, and that it's fearful for me. Feeling like I can't escape whatever is about to happen puts fear into me, and I'm sure it does with other people, and I believe that is the goal that Kubrick was going for. For example, closing at the very beginning, one of the first most eerie things I saw was around 21 minutes into the movie, was close up on Danny's horrified face while talking with Tony in the bathroom as he brushes his teeth. Before Danny, I believe he collapses or has an episode of some kind. And sound. And during each of these close-up scenes and following scenes, it is paired with specific sounds. So the sound and music throughout the whole of the movie also has very specific tones. They use low, heavy tuba and brass instruments almost constantly throughout the film. And then they add in cymbals, frequency, white noise, even sounds such as nails on a chalkboard, and high-pitched screeches almost. I'm not sure what instruments they use specifically to create them. I did try to look it up, but they just gave me a very long general list from the analyses that I read. I only read one or two and I didn't find them that helpful, so I'm mostly basing this off of my own notes. And in these scenes, the starting out low and heavy and quiet, and then just builds and builds as the camera zooms in. You don't even realize the sound is there half the time until the end when it abruptly stops, which happens very often. And when watching this movie for the second or third time trying to make these analysis notes, I realized that there's certain scenes where there is no music or sound almost at all besides the dialogue, and I think that is incredibly purposeful. For example, during the office scene, when Jack is talking with the Overlook Hotel's owner, or whatever he is, and making the deal to look after the hotel, there's absolutely no music. And the dialogue about them talking about the axe murderers and isolation from the incident in 1970 is completely and utterly highlighted. There's also no music at a point when Danny is talking with Tony, or Wendy's talking with Danny, and their words are just so much heavier and more highlighted in those scenes. There's also voice modulation in this movie, which I didn't really realize. There isn't that much of it, but I think it's important. There is Tony, which at first starts out as just obviously Danny's actor making a childish voice. But throughout the film, Tony's voice becomes more modulated. It becomes higher in pitch, more mature, and more terrifying. And it's incredibly eerie, paired with these predictions, that Tony makes. There's also the voice modulation of Jack at some point, which is, sorry, I can't find it. With around to the very end of the movie, Jack's voice is modulated when he's attacking them, and it's incredibly horrifying. They also use cymbals and crashes, increasing with intensity with the music, to just, it's like you're being attacked with sound throughout these scenes, even though nothing in those scenes may actually be happening badly. For example, when Danny first sees the twins around 49 at the hotel, around 49 minutes in, he doesn't seem to be in actual danger, and he doesn't seem to be actually alarmed, but these cymbals and crashes just come at your ears, and it, again, it creates an inescapable feeling in the viewer. And I want to end this talking about the end of the movie. So not only is there this voice methylation and ear-piercing feedback, and this all explodes in the end when Jack is attacking them, there is also, in the very last 5 minutes of the movie, constant chanting. So a lot of the music doesn't have any voices. But at the end of the movie, Jack hallucinates the ballroom, and with all these people in it, despite him being utterly alone besides with Danny and Wendy in this hotel. And ironically, they're playing old-timey jazz, a genre of music known to be pioneered by POC women in the and men in the 20s and 30s, as well as bringing large groups of cultured people together. And when Halloran is driving up to the Overlook, jazz is played again. And this is a stark contrast to all of the other sounds in the movie. And I just feel like it shows the level that Jack has switched onto mentally. And then right after this, chanting begins as Jack is chasing Danny through the maze. Chanting resembling what I'm guessing was the Indian burial ground. Very racist, but whatever. Along with shakers and ghost sounds and wind. And this end sound is just like completely pivotal, and honestly, it encompasses all of the sound and music throughout the film. Yeah. So here's my crappy analysis. I may or may not decide to post my notes just to see if that might help my grade. I'm an English major and I'm normally much better at this, but I did not have time because I'm not going to lie to you. I completely forgot about this assignment as I was cramming for tests in my other class for the last 2 weeks. Other classes, I take 5 other classes. But I hope you got the sense that I did attempt to analyze this movie very well. And I'm really, really enjoying your class. Thank you. Bye.